Hello everyone, and I'm back feeling a little better after a few days and raring to go for the next job. Now the next job, window regulator. We've had a delivery and it's taken a fair few days to get here. This car has such a nice feature having front electric windows. In fact, for any car of this price point, any Super Mini in 1989 to have front electric windows, that is a pure luxury. And I think it's only something that they put on the gear models, the XR2i, and I believe the S model as well, and obviously later models as such. But for the introduction models in 1989 for the Mark III Fiesta, these are the only models to have front electric windows, and it's disappointing when one decides not to work. In this case, it really is a frustrating thing because the guide is just, it's had it. So you have to just stump up and repair these things properly. And this is probably the biggest single investment I've made in this car in one component. Anyway, let's see what's come. Get cracking. Aye, it's been a while since I ordered anything from Autodoc. I have ordered quite a few things from them in the past, and we have an electric regulator. Let's take it out. Okay, so Electric Life is the brand. I believe they're made in Lithuania, but they make all sorts of window regulators. That's the sort of design of window regulator you get in sort of a bigger car, like a Ford Focus Mark 1 for instance, where they've got two sides because there needs to be enough support. But in a Mark III Fiesta, the doors are small enough that you only need one of these supports, and then literally two cables going to a motor there, so there's no need for another cross section. It just adds a lot of complexity. And believe you me, if you're trying to replace the cables, you can buy the cables separate for a lot of cars, but you really don't want to be fighting with this mechanism. It's so taut, it's untrue. Don't bother. I am all for not wasting stuff, but anyway, this is the window regulator. I'm just going to test it to make sure it does fit, and there is for a 5-door, not a 3-door, but immediately it looks very proportionate. Now the only differences that I've seen immediately are the guides. The guides are again made of a plastic. You got a metal piece that connects to the glass, that the glass sits on this piece here, and then the screws go through there. But it looks yeah, very self-explanatory and very good indeed. It's all been pre-greased up, and we've got some plastic supports on the side here for the cable, and then that goes into the motor. Now the only thing that I'm afraid we're going to have to do, and I've mentioned this before, is we're going to have to butcher the cable, the original cable, cut the old plug off. I will keep the old plug just because it comes with the car and it will go with the motor, so I'll cut the plug off and stick it on the motor off the old one. So I've got, you know, it's a working motor at the end of the day, so I'll rather, you know, cut the original plug off and keep it with the motor, so maybe someone could use that if they want it. Yeah, this black and blue cable is exactly the cable that I've seen on this side, on this driver's door. So I think that the one that's been replaced on the driver's side is this exact one. I think it looks identical in the casing and everything. But yeah, I'm going to have to do some soldering. You can crimp them, but in my opinion, I'll just go for soldering them. I'm going to have to obviously cut a bit more than that. You've got to cut a bit more cable than that. And we have got some of these buggers. But in truth, I hope not to use them. It depends whether these holes are big enough. They may not be big enough. If so, I might have to drill them out a bit more. But if so, we'll just use the pot rivets and a pot riveter. I don't mind, because this is going to go in and hopefully stay in. There's no risk of it possibly not working short term. But I'd prefer to use bolts, because that's what the person on the driver's side did. They just used bolts instead of these, which makes it easier to get out in the future. Now, there's one thing that you've got to do before you fit it, because it saves a lot of wasted time with a lot of electrical components. Aftermarket, does it work? Well, how are we going to test that? Because we can't even connect it up properly without soldering and hooking it into the car that way. Got a battery anywhere? Oh, have I? No, the battery's connected to Ruby. Yeah, but you do know that you've got a battery off the Focus. Aha, right. Okay, so what I can do is immediately test this out. Now I've got to make sure that I get these cables soldered to the right wires, because effectively it will do what I did before and putting the plug on the wrong way. You're effectively making the motor push this in the wrong direction. So if you press the down switch in the car, it goes up, and vice versa. But anyway, there's only really one way of doing this. I'll try and see if I can do this on camera. Yes! And reverse. Yes! Yes! Very quiet as well. Yeah! It works. Perfect. That's what you want to know. Thank you very much. You can go in the house now. Yeah, bye-bye. Right, now we can start to get the old one out, knowing that this one totally works. Oh, this is just going to be totally boring. You've seen me do this before, guys. So let's just speed this up. Right, what I can confirm is that this is the correct regulator to replace this one. But I'm going to have to think about the mountings, because these have got studs that are screwed into the motor body as far as I'm concerned. These do not. Now that is almost like they designed this to be pot riveted. So I may have to use pot rivets that are supplied in this case, because unless I can find some more bolts in truth, but they are quite small holes. So let me see if I can find appropriate ones. Okay, no problem. I've checked with having a look at these bolts, and this bolt barely screws into that, and to be fair, I wouldn't want to wreck these. So these bolts are going back in my spares, and I'm going to get the old rivet gun out for this. But there's a couple of niggly little things I need to deal with, but the main thing is getting this mounted properly. So I'll grab my gun and let's go. Right, first thing, I'm trying to, well, I've got to work out which one is which, the green and the blue. So I'm not quite sure about which is which. I'll have a look at the old motor just to see if I've got a reference point, but we can leave that there for now. The main thing is just take this plug out. So it's one of these sort of water protected plugs. That's okay, no problem. So we're just gonna leave that over there for now. There's plenty of wiring, there's plenty from the loom that goes sort of this way, so we wouldn't really have a problem. I'm just going to try and make a cut probably around here, just in any case, you know, you need to use the old plug, but don't cut too close, sort of cut where my finger is. But the main thing is just hooking this back in. Now I've got to make sure, this is the thing, if you've never used a pot riveter, it's very, very simple. They're very crude devices. Basically what you do is you have to select the size. Now a pot rivet, you're simply pulling a bit of metal and actually fattening it out. So basically you will put this in there. Now the other sizes, that won't fit, it's too fat. In fact, the pot rivets that I selected, were they the right size? They're fractionally smaller, so they're not big enough, but these have been selected to do the job. So the ones I selected, just in case I wanted to repair the old one, weren't big enough. They probably would have been. But essentially what happens is the pot riveter pulls this shaft of metal in, and it basically makes a double flare. So you see the flare there, it will make another flare on the other side, effectively two halves. and that's what it does basically. It pulls it straight in, but you have to keep pumping the actual gun a few times. So we're just going to release that. Okay, so we can pop that all the way in there. Okay, that's ready to be inserted, but we need to get this in place. Now this is where I need to mount my camera, because this is a two-handed job, not for the one-handed mechanic. Right, so I'm going to demonstrate with the first mounting, but we're just going to get it lined in there. It would help to have a bolt to keep it actually quite tight, but I'm just going to load it in, and you do load it in this way, of course. This is the only tricky part of the job. It's actually mounting it in. Okay, so motor is on that side. Now what I could do is use a bolt to peg the motor. That would help to keep it still. So try and use a bolt. It may not work. Might be tricky if that doesn't. Try and use a nut on the back side to try and keep it still. That's an interesting idea, bolt a nut. Well, I've got these nuts off the old the old motor. I could actually use them to mount the motor instead of using the pot rivets. I'm just thinking entirely about if this needs to come out in the future. Right, fantastic. I've wound that in now. Well, that is nice and steady. Now the other thing is to make sure that we get it lined up with these 4 holes. And it lines up absolutely perfectly. The last time I took the old regulator out, couldn't get the bolts lined up, so I had to sort of bend the bracket just a little bit just to get the bolts through. But, right, so we're going to aim with this. We are going to put it through the hole, okay, and keep pumping the handle, and eventually it will snap and leave the end of a rivet. Let's see how I get on. Here we go. Okay, change of plan. I'm actually going to do the bottom 2 because the top 2 seem to be just fractionally off. I think it's important just to get it exactly right. So put it in, and don't waste any time. Go. 1, 2, and it should just snap off. 3, bang, snap. I'll show you what's happened. There we go. That is the bit that's broken off. That is to be discarded, and we are left with that. See what I mean? It's ballooned out on the other side. Just a few pumps and it's in place. You see what I mean? That's not quite lined up. Although it is now. And that's lined up. Fantastic. Right, I'll aim for this one. Need to do the other 2. So I'm going to try and aim for the top one this time. Going to try and keep it steady with one hand. There we go. Gone. 1. See how it's ballooned. 2. Oh god, that's tight. And snap. Lovely. That's 2. And that lines up perfectly. This is so easy when you get used to using a pot riveter. I've never really, I have had times where I've needed to use one, but not this much. One. Come on. Two. Done. Hello. I thought I'd give you an open-ended view of what goes on. Now, this phone may want to move when I do this, but we'll see. Just so you can see what happens at the other end. So, rivet in. One pump. See how it pulls it in? One. Oh, you see what I mean? Yeah, it's double flaring. One. And two. Done. Woohoo! Sorted. And that's how to do pot riveting. Okay, I'm having a bit of a problem actually. My pot rivet has actually snapped on me. Now I can use my other pot rivets, but the reason that happened, sorry, it happened off camera. I suspect there was a bit too much movement because this motor is jiggling everywhere, and I can't. This is the only issue with these pot rivet guns is you need two hands to do that final third squeeze and then bang where it literally separates and explodes. Unfortunately, there's too much movement in the motor to guarantee the seal. So I'm actually going to go for a bolt and nut kit. So 8mm and 10mm. So a 10mm spanner on the back, 8mm bolt at the front, and I'll secure that in the old-fashioned way. Sometimes it's really tricky. You need free hands to do that properly. I've had that happen to me before with pot riveters. They are easy to use, but sometimes they're not always appropriate. So I'll probably show you the pros and cons of a pot riveter. I just prefer old-fashioned bolts and nuts personally, but that is really nice and secure. So bolts and nuts. Okay, well, I'm not going to take any chances. We've got a bit of the old plug of the motor and the old connector, but we're going to try and cut it about here. Oh dear, what a pity. We'll put that in the spares. I'll cut my own wires. Now, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to strip some of this insulation back, because for me, there's just too much. We need a bit more separation from these two. Right, my lovely tool, the wire stripper. So basically you just literally pull these two together, and this mechanism, sometimes it's a bit, you have to put your thumb on it sometimes, but we want to strip about a good length of wire. We want to strip enough insulation down, so might need to just get in there. Might not have cut enough wiring. That might be my issue with this, but I'll see how it goes. I don't want to cut too much wiring, but we'll see how it goes. So there you go. That's about enough wiring for me. There's probably, I'll just bring you in. It's probably just about a centimetre and a half, maybe 2 centimeters of wire there. There's enough there, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to twist the wires together with the old wiring and the new wiring, and then I'm going to operate that switch there, and I'm going to see whether the actual window regulator is actually going the way it should be going according to the switch. So then I know that the wires are correct, and then we can untwist the wires. Well, actually we can't. Well, in that situation, we can twist the wires and then just solder it complete. I know what electricians are going to say there. That creates resistance. I find it's the best way of soldering on the car. When you're soldering at a workstation, you have a soldering station to hold the wires together. Can't do that in situ. You know, you got one hand on the frigging soldering iron, and then you got one hand on the wires to try and keep them balanced. How are you supposed to do that? I don't know. So, no. Obviously, you got to feed it with solder. You know what I mean? So, it's each way. If it's the incorrect wire, then I'll simply unwind them and then twist them on the other wires, and I'll know that's correct. I will test it before I solder it, but that's kind of the idea. But I'm just going to strip that back. Lovely. Oh, I think I was a bit more generous with that wire. I might have to go back and do the green one again. That was really poor of me. There we go. Right, now we've got some generous insulation there. Find it in here. Okay. We've got a generous amount of wiring here. Do we really need this much wire? Well, the other side is just as bad. But I think we're going to need a bit more than that. I don't think I can twist that onto anything. Camera, come on. I do apologise today. My camera seems a bit funny. We are, as I say, we lose the light very early these days. But there we go. My friend Dave, I'm sure you're watching my stripping skills and are rating it probably a poor score, being an electrician yourself. Now, the idea is that you just twist these wires together now we got the black and we got the blue, but I really don't know what way these are supposed to go. But I'm going to go the blue with the blue and the green with the black. I think that's a reasonable amount of logic here. So we'll see. I know what people are going to say. Oh, you're going to get an electric shock because you haven't disconnected the battery. The switch isn't operating, guys, so you know. That is much better. And no, guys, I'm not using heat shrink. I've actually forgot to order some for this job. Silly me. I'm going to use some electrician's tape and then go over with the heat gun and shrink it. It's a similar material. You just got to wrap it quite nicely, but I'll organise it a bit better than this. But yeah, okie dokie. A basic non-controllable soldering iron. It's done me proud whenever I've needed it. I've given the tip a bit of a clean. Make sure you've got this brass stuff because you will need it. You want to make sure that tip is clean and free from rust, otherwise your joints are not going to be good. Obviously this is all clean copper, so no need to clean it because I've just stripped the insulation and it's all good. I can feel that getting hot and I can smell some burning. Make sure that you control this and make sure that you have enough soldering iron and you feed the solder into the gun, into the iron, I should say. This is going to be a how not to do soldering, believe you me. Okay, so we just want to feed it to the solder. Come on. Nope, won't melt. You don't. Your soldering iron isn't hot enough. It won't melt that. So wait a little bit. Right, we are accepting solder. Yes. And just lather it over the joint. Manipulate the solder across the two strands, nice and simply. That's all you need. Perfect. That's enough. Might need to go a bit underneath actually. Try and cover the wires at the top and all the way around. There we go. Perfect. Right, I've just popped the window glass back in and I've made the soldered connections. I've just got to put some tape over them and get my heat gun just to make sure the tape is nice and neat, just to make sure everything is nice and neat. But the main thing is, does it work? I'm going to show you an example. That is a decent solder. That isn't. I need to go back and do that again. Ugh. It wasn't actually catching for me. I needed to clean it a bit more, but I'm going to go over that again just in a second. I won't leave it like that, trust me guys. I'm a bit more thorough. So I've just popped the window glass back in, and as usual we've just left it a bit slack because we want the window to kind of self-center itself and then put the screws in. But the most important thing is when we press up, what the hell happens? Yes, down. Lovely. I think we can consider that a total success, and one of the biggest major features of the gear spec is now restored. We can now tighten these blasted bolts back up, and I'm going to end the day here. Right, so we are rapidly losing the light. I can't really show you too much more, but all I'm going to do next is stick this rail back on. Now the truth is it just clips in. You just got to sort of push it in like that, and then it will sort of clip in like that. You just got to ease it on very slowly. But the main thing is I've lubricated this sort of fur flex strip so that there's less rubbing against the window. This, I've just put some tape over the connections, and what I don't want is that window chopping into all this excess wiring. So I'm going to cable tie it to the back here so it's completely out of the way. It's important that you make sure that nothing is obstructing anything else. But apart from that, I've just given it a bit of a clean up. Door cards will go back on. The original door card will be going back on with the cigarette burns, all the patina of the history and all that, as much as I think irritating. I think there's quite a few things that are kind of irritating as such. Good news though, good news. I have actually managed to find another mount with the swivel. Believe you me, these are difficult to get hold of. Nobody really wants to sell me one, and it will come as an assembly here with well, the aerial. I'm really pleased about that. They're very hard to get hold of, but yeah, this is nice and smooth. Apart from you, we'll sort this out properly at some point, but my god, that's nice and smooth. The overspray from here wasn't just down to here, it was all up here and all here. It's honest to god, this panel is now lovely and polished. I love it. I'm just going to stick the door card back on. It really is easy. You know, once you've got this on, you just clip the door card at the top first, hinge it down, get all the screws lined in through the door bin and the door handle, and then you're done really. There's a little piece of trim that goes over this, and that's really that. There is nothing more to that than a door card, but I don't want to be showing you in the dark because I can't really show you much, because as you can see it's kind of getting very dark at the moment. But there you go, that's how to repair a window regulator, and the cost of £85. Well, it's a major feature that most people they tend to either leave or just jack it up with cardboard, but you know, that's just a short-term solution, isn't it? Well, for some people it is, but for me it's yeah, it's just while the repairs are going on. But as far as this is concerned, I will take the motor off that. I will see if I can take the cable out, but that's it. As far as I'm concerned, that's done. I tell you what though, the cardboard box, I need things to spray paint on, and at the moment things are going on, and there are quite a few things that are going on, but GT85 silicone spray all on the runners and you're done. You take care guys, I'll see you very soon.